Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to be making some pan-fried tilapia with some home fries, some spiced apples, and 2 loaves of sourdough that we're going to bake up. So I'm going to start by taking out my Dutch ovens that have been heating up in my oven at 500 degrees. So they're nice and toasty. There we go. Shut that. And we're going to then open up our bags of sourdough that have been proofing in the fridge. This is our sun-dried tomato and fresh basil, and this is just our basic sourdough. Okay, we're gonna get our piece of parchment paper out, and we're gonna flip our dough out of the Banneton baskets onto our parchment paper. Beautiful. And now we're going to do a simple score on here. So I'm going to do a crisscross, kind of like, there we go. We'll do change it up. And I'm going to lift up my lid here. Very hot, so remember to use, we'll do change it up. And I'm gonna lift up my lid here. It's very hot, so remember to use, because these, like you say, pots are 500 degrees. We're gonna drop it in there, and then we're gonna put our lid right back on. And then let's prep our next sheet of parchment paper for our traditional sourdough dough loaf. And we're just gonna flip these out of their basket. Gently pull up the cheesecloth. And then I'm gonna get let's see, maybe we'll do something different. Let's see, well, we'll do our big one down the middle, and maybe we'll do a little one and a little one. Okay, we're gonna pop this guy in our other Dutch oven. I'm using an oval Dutch oven for my loaves because that way they can bake nice and long. Going right in there, we're gonna put the lid on, and then I'm going to pop these in the oven for 20 minutes at 500 degrees with the lid on. Then we'll take the lid off and we'll bake them for another 15-20 minutes at 450. There we go. And then I'm just gonna check my timer on my watch, 8:08, so I'll know at 8:28 to take those lids off. Okay, let's get prepping for the rest of dinner tonight. Okay, so we're gonna do some spiced apples because today I literally bought some apples in a bag. I had them delivered and they were so bruised up. Doesn't mean they're bad, just means that they're not gonna be good for very long. So we are going to just give them a quick peel and chop them up, and then we're gonna cook them with some cinnamon and butter and lemon juice and some sugar so we can have a nice cinnamon apple with dinner tonight. Because I was deciding, do I do cinnamon apples or do a pie? And cinnamon apples won out with everybody. So let's get these. I'm just quartering all of my apples first, and then apples won out with everybody. So let's get these. I'm just quartering all of my apples first, and then I'm gonna go through with my paring knife to remove the seeds and the skin, because I am not a fan of skins on my apples when I cook them. So I'm just gonna go, this is a paring knife for those of you who don't know. This is a serrated paring knife, which I prefer over a traditional paring knife. I feel like it cuts a little bit better. And we're just gonna go through and we're gonna decore each of these and then just do a quick peel of the skin. If a little bit of skin is on there, that's fine. It's just apple skins don't cook up well. They get really chewy, and they don't like kind of soften or disintegrate at all. So I'm really big about making sure we peel these off. But these will be for our yummy cinnamon apples, and then we'll do our fried tilapia and our home fries. So we're gonna get these up first because they take the longest to kind of cook, because you want them to get nice and tender in their juices. So we'll peel these out. It's not too long. A lot of people always feel like making apple pie or anything with fresh apples is daunting because you got to peel and core, but it really doesn't take too long to do it all. And that's the whole the thing is, that's what I think most people, when they're into cooking, they're like afraid because they're afraid they're gonna mess up, or they don't know how to do it, or it's gonna take too long. And once you get comfortable in the kitchen, things can go by so much faster. Like, I'll say my sister-in-law, she's Irish, and from like Ireland, Irish, so true Irish, and she's like the world's fastest potato peeler ever. So at Thanksgiving, she's the one who has to peel 40 pounds of potatoes for our like 50 people that we have in our family. And she gets through them, like, I swear, she can peel like those bags of potatoes faster, like 3 bags faster than I can peel one. She's like got it down to a science. But I get she eats a lot of potatoes, and she's gotten really good at it. And that's just what it is. All your skills, you might be terrible at them in the beginning, but over time you just get better with them. Like, if I were to pop my husband over here, like 2 hours later, he'd still be peeling these apples. But just a quick through, and you kind of just, guide your blade along the outside of the skin. And nice and easy. But this will be, I'll say this will be the last meal I cook until Sunday. Tomorrow morning, we're driving up, me and my middle daughter, we're driving up to Memphis for a soccer tournament. So we'll be there until Sunday. So tomorrow there will be no live cooking, unfortunately. So this will be the last meal until Sunday dinner. And my kids will miss it too. They're already, it was funny, I told them I was gonna be gone this weekend, and they're like, oh, not again, not Papa's food again. So, at least I missed for something. And when I say Papa's food, that's typically me ordering takeout for them. Like pizza or something to come, which they don't mind. But I think they prefer my cooking over that. Let's see. There we go. We're almost, we've just got a few more left in here, and then we can chop these up. Then we'll make our bread, our flour mix for our tilapia. We're going to be using, I'll use all-purpose flour, some onion and herbs seasoning from like Dash's Onion and Herbs, Lowry's seasoning salt, and we'll do like a flour coat on our tilapia. Then I'm going to dip them in eggs, and then I will add a bit of panko breadcrumbs to my flour mix, and then we'll re-bread them, and then we'll fry them up in our pan, and they just make a delicious, a lightly breaded fried fish. So it's not a super heavy breading, but it's a nice pan fried fish. And I'll make a homemade tartar sauce to go with that using, mayo, lemon juice, dill, and onions and pickles. And then we'll do our home fries as well. I have 2 left, and then we're done. Woohoo, see, we got these peeled up in no time. Okay, and these are just, they make so good. It feels like when you get older, you eat less fruit with dinner than when you were a kid. And like as an adult, how often do you eat applesauce? Not very often. But spiced apples are something that are so delicious. And everyone loves them, but it's just not something we eat as often. But it is a nice little, I guess, a sweet side that you can do. It's also really good in like when you do barbecue or whatnot. Okay, so I'm gonna give these just a quick chop through because if they're a little bit smaller, they're gonna cook up just a little bit faster. And you don't have to worry about how beautiful they're kind of cut up because you're gonna be just scooping these up anyways. So, perfect. And we're gonna season these with some fresh lemon juice, sugar, and cinnamon, and a little bit of butter, and a dash of salt. Salt seems weird to add to something like savor or sweet, like spiced apples, but it works its magic in there. It really brings out the flavors of the cinnamon and the apple. So I've got my little Dutch oven over here. I'm gonna turn it on. We're gonna put a little bit of butter in here, not much, maybe about 2 tablespoons. This is just gonna really thicken up the natural juices that come out of the apples. So we're gonna toss these apples in here. And beautiful. So we've got our apples right there. And we are gonna put in some cinnamon. I'm like down to my last one on this. This is about a teaspoon left in here. We're gonna use about a tablespoon of cinnamon. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. I'm just eyeballing it, but you want a good amount, so about a tablespoon.
You have a question? What brand of knives are you using? They seem to chop nice.
Yeah, these are Wusthof. I actually got them for my wedding like 17 years ago. They're great. I mean, I've had them. They're sharp. They've not dulled. I mean, I have my sharp up, but they work wonderful. And then I'm going to add a bit of sugar in here. Let me grab this real quick. So we're going to use some granulated sugar. You don't need too much because apples are naturally sweet on their own. So I'm going to use about 1/2 cup. If I can get this all out here, I'm at my end of my sugar there. So 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and we're gonna squeeze in 1/2 of a lemon juice because I'm gonna actually save the other part of my lemon for my tartar sauce that we're gonna be making. So we're just gonna kind of cut through, and then let me peel, get these seeds out. Sometimes you get a lemon and they have so many seeds. And then I'm just gonna squeeze. Grab one of those seeds and just squeeze it. Look at that, they just keep coming. There we go. And grab this seed out. And the lemon juice is just gonna bring out the natural tartness in the apples as well, but also prevent them from getting like browning from oxidization versus browning from being, cooked in cinnamon sugar deliciousness. We're gonna stew these on nice and low and slow. That's why I wanna get them in first so that they can cook slowly. So we're gonna give them a good stir until all that cinnamon is coated. Beautiful. These are gonna be just lovely. So we've got our apples right there. Now the trick with this is we're gonna put our lid on it, and you just wanna keep your lid on it simmering at low for a while. It's gonna trap in the natural moistures and make them for a nice kind of sauce on them. Let me clean up my apple peels over here, and then we can start prepping dinner. There we go. I'll say I always keep my trash can by me while I'm cooking because you always make a lot of trash. Okay, let's start with our potatoes so we can pop these in the oven. We're gonna do just a basic home fry. So I'm going to chop these up. I'm gonna chop them all in half, and then I'm gonna just kind of slice them thinly. So kind of like they're gonna be like a half chip almost. So think about fish and chips, but a little bit, instead of like the traditional British fish and chips that are beer battered, these will be just coated in a little bit of olive oil, flour, Lowry seasoning, salt, and they're delicious. So we're just gonna kind of cut them just like that, not super thin, not super thick. So you don't want them like potato wedges. You need them to be thinner than potato wedges because you want them to cook up a little bit faster. So they're kind of like a half chip, I would say, half of a potato wedge. The key is to try to get all of your potatoes to be about the same thickness and size so they all cook up at the same time. Otherwise, you'll be left with ones that are either undercooked or overcooked. So consistency and size is key for our home fries. But they're delicious. especially because I love to also dip my home fries in the homemade tartar sauce, because I just love homemade tartar sauce. I can't stand store-bought tartar sauce. It just doesn't have the right taste. I'm gonna chop these guys, and we're almost done. And I'm just using a russet potato here. For it, I find for home fries, russet potatoes work better than like the Yukon Gold or new potatoes, because they are less waxy. So they cook up a little bit better in the oven, getting you that like fry texture. Okay. Cut off these ends, and we've got one more potato to slice up. And we're gonna dress them in a nice coat of olive oil and a little bit of flour and Lowry seasoning salt. So just a really basic, kind of almost gives you that steak fries texture to them. There we go. And we are done. So I'm gonna put these in my bowl, and we're gonna dress them up, and just gonna toss out these end pieces that are all skin. My kids aren't a big fan of the full skin, but they'll do partials. There we go. Okay, the trick is to make sure you get them every piece coated. You don't need too much olive oil. That's probably about 2 tablespoons. You just wanna make sure you have enough to dress each one. And then you're gonna use some Lowry seasoned salt. This is essentially salt that just has like celery and paprika in it, and it's a nice flavor. It gives you that kind of seasoned steak fries. And you're gonna kind of sprinkle it over. It's probably gonna be like around a tablespoon, maybe a little less. And then you're gonna put in a little bit of flour. Not much, like I want to say 1/4 of a cup max, maybe even less, maybe an even eighth, between an eighth and a fourth, just enough to get a really fine coating on your fry. You don't want them completely battered, you just want them to make sure all your flavors are going to stick, and then they're going to crisp up. And then we're just going to get in here, and we're going to really toss them to make sure they're all coated up nicely. And you can see they have kind of like a paste on them. That's exactly what you want. That's what the flour, the oil, and the salt's making. That's gonna give you those nice flavor and textures on your home fries. And I do have my oven preheating to 425 on the air fryer setting. Let's grab my big baking sheet. So this is a 1.5 sheet baking sheet. It takes up the whole width of the oven, and I like this because you can spread out everything and you don't have to have your stuff crowded. When you're baking home fries, you really want to make sure that they're not on top of each other so that they can bake up nicely. Let's see, about 5 minutes, we'll be taking off our lid to our sourdough, and then we'll be doing the rest. Give that one a toss. And that one. The full skins are just nobody's favorites. Okay, and then we're gonna go pop these in the oven in just a second. 425 is what we're on the air fryer setting. If your oven doesn't have an air fryer setting, you can use the convection roast at 425, which is similar to an air fryer, or you can do just a basic roast, but do it at like 435, a little bit hotter. Okay, we've got these spread out. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then we're gonna put these in the oven to let them cook. Okay. Give apples a little stir while we head to the oven. Beautiful. And it looks so. Got them on my air fryer. I'm gonna put them up towards the top so they get nice and golden brown. And I'm gonna set my timer for about 15 minutes to start with. and to check on them then. Okay, we've got a few minutes before we need to take off the lid, so let's prep our bases for our fish. So we're gonna start out with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I put it in here. And then we need to season up our flour because this is what's going to give all the flavor to our fish. So I'm using Mrs. Dash's onion and herbs. This is a salt-free spice, but I like it. And we're going to use about, let's see, that's 1, 2, about 3 tablespoons of it because you want to have nice seasoning on your fish. And then we're going to use some Lowry seasoning salt as well. I find this one works well with it, but garlic salt also works out. So that's about 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. And now we're going to give 2 tablespoons of the Lowry, and I'm going to stir it with a fork. You just want to mix this up. And then we're going to dip our fish in this, the first thing, and then we will dip them, so fish will go in the flour coating, then in an egg, and then we'll add a bit of panko breadcrumbs to this, and then dip our fish from the egg into the new panko crumbed flour mix. But before we do that, it's been 20 minutes, so let's take off the lid to our sourdough. So I'll pop them out here. We can take off the lids, and then we're going to pop them back in at 450 for another 15-20 minutes. So I've got 1 and I've got 2. And then you take off the lid for this part. So that is our beautiful sun-dried tomato, and then ours are traditional. And we're now going to bake at 450. This gives you the nice golden crust, while the first one kind of traps in the moisture for the bit. So now I've got this here, and then we're going to turn down the heat to 450. And then we'll bake that for another 15-20 minutes or until your crust is the color that you like. Okay, let's get this show on the road. I'm going to start getting my oil ready. So we're going to be frying it in here. So we don't need enough oil that it's completely submerged, but you want to be able to have at least the bottom part of yours coated. So I'm going to use a little bit more. I'm using olive oil because I'm not going to be heating it to such a high point that it is going to smoke, but it will. I just tend to like olive oil. I use it for everything. It's the only oil I really buy. There we go. We'll start with that. And I'm going to turn this on because we want to get it to a nice warm temperature. Let's check on our apples. They're beautiful. They're starting to really simmer now. You see their natural juices have come out. Perfect. Let those simmer up. I'm just going to let a little bit of thick. Okay. Let's crack our eggs. We're going to make our egg mixture, which is just, we're going to beat up 3 eggs for our tilapia. Perfect. And just pop my yolks. I'm going to give it a nice beat. And the reason I do flour, egg, and then the next flour mixture is because if you try to dip your fish in the egg first, the egg just slides off, and then our tilapia won't have the nice breaded cooking. So it's essential. We're doing our pan-fried tilapia with our home fries and our spiced apples. And if you want it to have that good crust on it, you need to do a flour coating first. Otherwise, the egg just slides right off. Okay, so here's our tilapia that we're cooking up tonight. If we can open it. Here, there we go. So, 1. It's just my oven telling me it's at 450 now. And here's our next one. So we have kind of 6 fillets tonight. And they're perfect. So what we're gonna do first is I'm going to dip it into our flour mixture and really coat it completely with this. And I'll set it out. So I'm gonna dip them all in the flour first. And this essentially is just so that the egg mixture is going to stick on it so that you can then get our next coating to stick on and give you the nice crust for it. There we go. We're gonna coat this guy up. And perfect. One more. And we seasoned our flour mixture with some garlic and herb and some Lowry seasoning salt. And now we have it here. And I'm down to my end of my breadcrumbs, so we're gonna put the rest of these in here.
So it's kind of like a southern fish and chips.
Yes, kind of like a southern fish and chips. And now I'm just gonna give this a nice mix to coat it up. This is gonna give you a nice crunch on your fish. It's not a super thick breading, but it's a nice lighter breading with lots of flavor. And then now we're gonna dip our tilapia into the egg. Now you see how the sticking all to it? That will allow our flour and panko breadcrumb coating to stick. Otherwise, your egg wash will just slide right off, and then your nice crust won't stick to your fish. And the same thing as if you're doing chicken or fried pork tenderloin. You've got to make sure you get a flour coat on it to keep it to stick. There we go. Perfect. We just have a couple more, and our oil's heating up. And they'll be ready to fry. I'll do 3 at a time in here. Because when you're frying, you don't want to overcrowd whatever you're frying, because then it won't cook evenly. I can see we are getting to the right temperature too. We're starting to bubble, which is perfect.
You have a question? What made you choose tilapia? Do you prefer the flavor?
Yeah, I really like tilapia for it. I mean, if I can get catfish, that's good. The problem is with catfish is you never know whether it came from a clean source or not, so whether it's gonna have a great flavor.
Red snapper.
Or it's snapper is good. Cod, I like cod, but my kids don't like it, or my husband. They think it's too thick. They like the thinner fishes. So we're gonna put it in here. I'm gonna get my third one, and we're gonna finish coating these, and we're gonna let these fry in there. So we're dip it in there. But yeah, and tilapia's, it's pretty cheap. It's not a super expensive one. But when you're frying fish, you typically want to go with a nice white fish. They fry up nicely. And tilapia we can get all the time. Sometimes I can get a good catfish, or a walleye when they have it, or trout. Those are all good. But you don't have very many options most of the time when you go to just a regular grocery store. Occasionally they'll carry other specialty fish. But
yeah, and someone brings up a good point. It's a mild fish.
Yeah, it is. It really is a mild fish. It takes on the flavor of anything you cook it in, really. And the goal is to get the kids to eat fish. Okay, we've got our breading and our egg done.
Oh, you got a question? Are the recipes part of the perk when we subscribe?
We post our recipe cards and whatnot, but they're on the link on our page, so you have to click on the link on our page to get to our recipe cards. And then
they have to go to the post.
Yes, the post on our page. So the recipe card, when we flash it up, tells you that we have them posted, but to be able to read them nicely, you have to go onto the link. Otherwise, it's a picture that you can't completely scroll into. And give my hands a quick wash.
And then there's another question. What about haddock fish? Do you like that?
I've had it a couple of times. It's not one that I can find here often, and it's pretty good. I eat pretty much everything. I'm the most adventurous eater out of my whole family, and so I like it all. But my kids, and my husband, I will say, my husband and my 9-year-old are the pickiest eaters in our family, and for them, I've got to make sure they like it as well. Let's give this a stir. Okay, perfect. We've got our apple simmering. Put it right over here. We're gonna let these, I'm gonna get a baking sheet, I'm gonna coat it with paper towels so that when we pull out the fish, that they can drain on that.
We have like 20 suggestions of different types of fish. We'll have to try a different one next time.
Yes, we will. And I said, like with salmon, I typically do my salmon, I have like really 3 ways that I do it. I'll do a crispy pan-fried salmon, or I'll broil it in the oven. And in the summer, I like to grill my salmon on cedar planks. So delicious.
Jenny got her Dutch oven today, and she said that thing's heavy.
It is very heavy. It is heavy. I have dropped one on my foot before, and it was very painful.
They're cast iron.
They are solid cast iron. So if you buy a Dutch oven and it's not heavy, then you've got a knockoff. But yeah, that's essentially, it's the same as a cast iron, like a frying pan, but it's coated with the enamel, so it gives you that non-stick cooking surface. Okay, let me get a cutting board out, and we're gonna work on our tartar sauce. Let me clean up this just a little bit.
You got another vote for catfish. I like catfish.
Yes, I like catfish, assuming my catfish comes, I just have had bad experiences with catfish, because catfish are bottom feeders, and so if they come from like a place that's not good, they have kind of a really earthy taste to them. But if you can get one from like a really fresh one, then they don't have as much of that earthy flavor, and that can get me sometimes. Okay. Mayo, dill, pickle, onion, and lemon juice, and garlic salt for our homemade tartar sauce. Do a bigger bowl. Okay.
I say next time we put a poll up and let people choose.
Yeah, which one? Okay, we're gonna start out with some mayo. I'm gonna use probably around a cup, maybe a cup. That's about a cup of mayo. Your trick is make sure your mayo is the full fat. Don't use the light mayo, and make sure it's not expired. So many times mayo sits in your fridge for like a year, and it gets a funky taste after a couple of months. So I am always buying fresh mayo all the time.
Here's a good question. Have you ever made your own mayo?
I have not. I know it's just in like an emulsion of olive oil and eggs and like vinegar or something like that. I have not made it before. But you know what? I've had it. I've had fresh thing, and I love it. I've just never gone through the process of making it.
And they asked if you've ever made dill pickle sourdough. That'd be interesting.
Oh, that would be interesting. I have not made it. Let me check on my fish before we get there. Pull out my tongs and a spatula. I don't think they're quite ready yet, but I want to just double check. Yeah, I need about another minute. And there, the trick is I had my oil heating up high, but then I turned it down once it got to a thing, because if you leave your oil up high, you will burn your food, and you want a nice golden thing. Okay, so for our tartar sauce, I'm gonna add in a juice from a half of a lemon. The reason I'm squeezing it upside down is there's so many seeds in lemons nowadays, and they're hard to pick out once they get in there. And they still keep falling. Okay, but when I see them on the top, I can pull them out. So we've got a juice of a half of a lemon, and I normally would use a red onion, but I did not have any red onions. I used the last one up yesterday. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of a yellow onion, which has a stronger flavor, so I don't need as much of it. Take this skin off, and I'm gonna do a fine mince on it. But it would be about, if you're using red onion, about maybe a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons minced up. For a yellow onion, you're gonna use a little bit less. And here, our home fries, we'll go check on those. So I'm gonna put my minced up onion in here. I'm gonna flip my fish real quick before we go over there, and then we'll pop those out because look at that nice golden brown on it, perfect. And then I'm using a spatula and tongs because they kind of work together so you don't break your fish as you flip them. Now let's check on our home fries. I still think they might need a minute or two, but I want to just check on them. Oh, beautiful. They are just about done. So for the last 5 minutes, I'm going to bring them down one, just to keep them a little bit farther away from the heat. And I'm going to put 350 on there. And hopefully we'll be ready to eat with all of those. Our sourdough need about 2-3 more minutes, and they'll be ready too. So everything should be done in just a few minutes. Okay, and now we're going to take 2 pickles, and we're going to mince up these pickles as well to go into our tartar sauce. The pickle is an essential part of the tartar sauce, and you want to use a dill, like a kosher dill pickle. Don't put sweet pickles in here because you want a nice salty tartar sauce. There we go. And just slice these up. Cut it through. I love the pickles. It's like my favorite part about the tartar sauce. Now we're going to scoop these into here. And then we're going to add about a teaspoon of dill. If you have fresh dill, that's even better. But I don't typically have fresh dill unless it is the summer and I'm growing it. Because caterpillars and butterflies absolutely love dill. All of my caterpillars, all of them, they make their cocoons on my dill plants when I'm out there in the summer. You can see it every time I go to harvest them. I see like 5 or 6 like cocoons or chrysalises. I'm guessing they're chrysalises because they're butterflies. There we go. And mix it up, and then we're just going to add a little bit of garlic salt to taste. But you don't need much because mayo is already salty as it is, and pickles are salty. So I'd probably like a half a teaspoon max. Perfect. And if you like pepper, you could add a bit of pepper to yours as well. But this is our beautiful homemade tartar sauce that we'll be having with our fish. Okay. I'm pretty sure these guys are ready to come out. Beautiful, nice, and golden. I like to put it the grease side, the hot side down because that will take most of the grease coming up. Let me get my spatula underneath here. Beautiful. And now we're going to plop in our last 3. We're going to fry these guys up. Perfect. And we are done with this cutting board. And now we have our apples. They have nice and slowly been cooking. So the last part we do with our apples is we're just going to throw in a little bit of cornstarch to give them that nice, like, I want to say silky texture. I'm going to turn it down to real low. Grab my cornstarch. And the trick is you've got to kind of really shake it over it very careful. You don't want any big chunks to kind of fall into your thing because the kind of will turn into like a dumpling if you do. So I'm just going to really sprinkle it and stir. And this is going to help kind of thicken it up just a little bit and give you that kind of nice jelly texture on like spiced apples, that like where the flavor really sticks to the apple.
What color are your bottom cabinets?
They are a slate, so they're stained wood. So they're slate stained wood. I really loved them. I love them. Okay, because my old kitchen was all white and I could never keep my bottom cabinets clean. So I said when we remodeled, I was gonna go grab our home fries out. When we remodeled, I said, we can't do white on the bottom. So I was deciding, so it's not black because I thought black would show up everything. So it's a slate and you can see the wood graining through it. Beautiful. Perfect.
Yeah, they say they love the two tones.
Yeah, I think it gives it a pop. It makes it not as sterile as an all-white kitchen. And with little kids and fingers, can we turn that off? There we go. You don't see the mess they make as much. And trust me, they make a mess. Let me put this right here. Now, once you get your home fries out, the trick to get them so that they don't dry out is to pull them all together in a big pile. And that just keeps their natural, moisture together. So we're gonna just, there we go. So you see, we're gonna pick them all up in a pile, and that just keeps them nice and tender without drying out. You know how if you get fries at a restaurant and they've been sitting for too long, they kind of get dry and chewy? The trick is to put them all together in a pile, and it kind of keeps their natural moisture together. And that's always what I'm always like. So whenever I do it, I always pile them together, and they stay nice and tender and a nice moist, I guess. It's kind of hard because it's not really moist, but here. And now we are ready to take our sourdoughs out. Let me go get 2 more trivets. 1 and 2. And just make a little room for it because these pans are hot. And I've got my oven mitts. So here is our beautiful sun-dried tomato and fresh basil. And here is our traditional. Now the trick is when you make homemade loaves, you can't cut into them right away. You've got to let them sit for about 10 minutes minimum before you cut into it. I'm gonna get my cutting board right here and pop them on my cutting board so that you guys can see them, and then we'll cut them up when we eat. But if you cut them too early, they lose all of their natural moisture that keeps your bread from being nice and tender versus being, dry and crumbly. So here's our first one. Here is our second one. It's beautiful, delicious. They have that nice crispy outer shell. I'm gonna take these over here out of the way since they're hot. And then I can plate up how we'll eat dinner tonight while my last ones are frying. Grab a plate. So, the way we'll be serving is we'll have a good serving of fried potatoes, and let's take this, our first one, our pan-fried tilapia, and I'm gonna get a little bowl for my apples because I don't want them to touch my fish. I want them to be nice and delicious, but you see, you've got this nice golden brown kind of caramelization on them. Beautiful. And then, of course, you need to have your pan-fried tilapia with a nice dollop of tartar sauce. And then we'll be serving it with our homemade sourdough bread. So this is our dinner tonight. Yummy home fries, pan-fried tilapia, and spiced apples. Well guys, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We try to do live cooking shows every night, but tomorrow we will not be here because I'm going to be in Memphis.
There's a quick question. Do you wash the Dutch ovens with soap and water or treat them like regular cast
I
iron?
wash them with soap and water because they do have an enamel coating on them, which protects them from rust that you would get in a cast iron pan. So soap and water, you just need to make sure you dry them really well, especially if you can see right around this top is not sealed, so that is exposed cast iron. That can rust if you leave it wet. So make sure that is well dried. But again, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.